Welcome to Toolbox, a resource for preachers, for small group leaders and for worship leaders. The passage we're looking at today is Mark chapter 4, reading from verse 35 to the end of the chapter. The passage starts in verse 35 saying, "On that day when evening had come." And so perhaps that's a useful marker for us to just reflect on the last couple of chapters and to see where is it, which day is it that he's referring to. And the passages followed has been the passages regarding the parable of the sower, the planting of the seeds, the growing, the seasonal growing, and the parable of the mustard seed. In a sense, they're all passages about this new community that Jesus is forming and where its life will come from, where the danger will come from, and the sure and certain hope that they're on the winning side, that this is going to work out. And so on that day, when they'd heard all those parables and messages from Jesus, on that day, when evening had come, Jesus said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." Still verse 35, and still there's so much more to look at in that, because when he says the other side, he's referring to the other side of the Lake of Galilee. And that's a bigger change than we might expect, because the one side of the Lake of Galilee was the Jewish side, where everything was familiar and they could find the food that they needed. They were among people. There were places to worship. There were people they knew. And the other side of the lake was the people they'd always spoken about as them, the people that were unlike them, people who were different, people who did things differently, people amongst whom they didn't feel they belonged, and, truth be told, they weren't really sure that they should be mixing with them anyway. But somehow on that day, when they were talking about the growth of the community and how its growth and its ministry was certain, Jesus said to them, "Come, let us go to these people who are not like us at all. Let us cross to the lake, to the other side, to the place that we've always been a little bit afraid of, a little bit uncertain of." And so, leaving the crowd behind, because not everyone would want to do this, verse 36, leaving the crowd behind, they took him with them in the boats, just as he was. There were other boats with them, and they began to cross the lake. And as they crossed the lake, a great windstorm arose, such that the waves beat into the boat, and the boat was already being swamped. Now, spoiler alert, by the end of the story, the storm is calmed. But what's really important, if we're going to get into what Mark is saying and truly understand what Mark is saying, is that this story has far more to it than just a simple tagline that says, you know what, Jesus can control the weather. Jesus can control the weather, so pray for our Sunday school picnic on Sunday. There's far more to it than that we should be getting out of it. So, as they're travelling from what is familiar to what is unfamiliar, there is a storm that arises. And I don't know if there was a physical storm or wind and wave over the lake that day, but I can imagine that there's a storm that arises in the disciples' lives as they travel towards people and a place where they've never been before, where they're not sure that they want to go. And the closer they get to the other side, the greater the storm is in their lives. They're travelling towards the far side, and as they get there, as they move towards it, the storm arises. The boat was already being swamped, and Jesus was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. Jesus is behind them. Their eyes are fixed on the far side, and Jesus is behind them in the stern of the boat. He's at that place where the tiller is, giving direction to the project, but he has no storm in his life. He has peace. He is asleep. This is okay. It's comfortable. It's good. And they turn to Jesus and they wake him up And they say to him, Jesus, don't you care that we are dying here? And Jesus woke up, rebukes the wind, and says to the sea, peace, be still, and the wind ceases, and there's a dead calm. Now don't miss the disciples' words there, because they're still in the boat with Jesus. But this thing is killing them. We're dying here. And Jesus is unconcerned about that. Not that he doesn't care about them, but is it perhaps that it is the worst parts of themselves that are dying? Or the parts of themselves that they need to die to that are dying? Is it some of their racism or their xenophobia that's dying? They wake Jesus, they turn back to Jesus, and as they turn back to Jesus, that is the moment at which the storm begins to get resolved, when they return to Jesus. And the wind ceased, and there was a dead calm, and Jesus said to them, why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith? Now, if this was a physical storm on the Sea of Galilee with waves washing over the boat and these fishermen fearing for their lives, this might well be the silliest question of all times. Why are you afraid? There's waves, there's wind, we feel like we're about to drown. It speaks for itself. But if this is about the project, if this is about the mission, if this is about this journey that Jesus is taking them on to the other side, then it's quite a natural question to say to them, why are you afraid? I'm still here with you. I'm still giving direction to this project. We're still travelling together. Nothing has changed. Where is your faith? And the disciples, verse 41, are filled with great awe, and they say to one another, who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? The disciples are filled with great awe, and they're asking themselves, how is it that even here, and even in this journey, and even in this mission to the other side, and in the midst of all this uncertainty, even here we can find peace? Where are the places that God is calling us to go? Or what is the mission that God is calling us on that we're thinking is way too big for us? We can't do this, it's too scary, we've never done this before. And might we take our eyes off the far side of our lakes or the far side of our problems and turn our eyes back to Jesus and find peace, even in the midst of that journey? God bless.